Ah, perfect. Just the person I need to see. Firstly, loving the outfit, by the way. Really suits your hair. Secondly, the universe is falling apart. I don't have much time to yet. I need to shoot off. I need to do something. But by all means, this is imperative. Watch Type 40. The Type 40 podcast is where you need to be. Seguida!
It's time for Type 40 Live again, materialising to kick off your week with the live stream Doctor Who magazine show across your view screen in real time on YouTube, Rumble and on Facebook. And we're in front of a live chat full of friends, fans and companions just like you as ever. What on earth brings us back to Doctor Who, back to the Whoniverse? Early with this extra live stream, you may well ask, how could we not, everyone, when one of Doctor Who's biggest lifelong fans invited us to view and review his latest achievement? That's producer, songwriter and legendary DJ Ian Levine, one of the best-known figures in Doctor Who, and a history of challenging himself and challenging the status quo and making the seemingly impossible things happen, doesn't he? And this time he's gathered together a team to help him create something fresh. And we're going to get stuck into that over the next however long we're here with you across YouTube, Rumble, and on Facebook, talking all things Doctor Who across the regenerations, across the classic series, the new series, and into the all-new series too. That's what we do here at Type 40 Live. Okay, as always, we are materializing right in front of your eyes here across social media. But please remember, if you're watching over on Facebook in the Type 40 Facebook group, hit that little blue link and then Facebook will tell StreamYard who you are. StreamYard tells us. We all get on first name terms to speak about this exciting new development all together, all huddled round, just the way they would huddle round the television in the days of the William Hartnell era there, way back. Yes, we're going to be reviving a classic. Maybe so much to talk about. Of course, I'm Dan Hadley, Birmingham's King of the Geeks. I'd forgotten to mention that. And they are coming on right now too, everybody. So I've got a nice panel to get into the console room. And I think we'll go authentic, shall we? We'll go start as me to go on. There we are. So they're packed in filming all the way back in 1965 in this fabulous colorized console room, courtesy of Clayton Hickman there. There's enough space, I think, for everybody to fall in. First of all, let's grab him, as colourful as ever and probably very, very eager to get going, Mr. Simon Norton.
Absolutely, very, very eager to get going. I'm a bit subdued this evening because I've got a cold on the way, everybody. So don't sit too close to the cameras, all right? I'm keeping my distance because I've got a cold on the way. But apart from that, I'm absolutely raring to go on this, and I've got my I've got my Andy Warhol Dalek T-shirt on already, and I'm coiled like a serpent, ready to go on this one.
you do seem to have a tea for every occasion and for every topic that we We get together to talk about here at Type 40, don't you?
I don't know, but anyway, I just happen to have one for tonight, that's for sure, and I haven't worn it before, so don't think so anyway. So it seemed the perfect opportunity. Colorized Daleks with a colorized console room. There it is. Isn't it magnificent, that console room? It's the original and the best. It really is.
I agree. I like the soft furnishings as well. I like the chair there on the right, and I like that sort of chrome. What would you call that? It's like a stretcher, is it? It's like the sort of thing the doctor would make you sit on when you went to the GPs when you were a child.
Yeah, I think that's probably the thing from. No, it's not the one from the Edge of Destruction, is it? Those were sort of curved. They were. They were ergonomically designed, weren't they? The beds in the Edge of Destruction. I know what that is. That is the that's got to be the stretcher actually that Stephen happens to be lying on in the first episode of the Daleks Masterplan, I think, by bizarre coincidence.
There we go. I thought that was a bedpan there on the lower one, but I won't look at that too closely. We'll just move on and bring on everybody else, shall we? Yeah, we've got Starry-Eyed Girl Sarah Graham back with us too.
Hello everyone. Hello, Simon. I love that T-shirt. Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's my Andy Warhol Daleks T-shirt.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
Great.
Yeah, and I love this TARDIS as well, and it's so cozy, and
It is.
Just so much more warmer, and it looks gorgeous.
There's just something about it, isn't there, Sarah? It's the detail in it. It's the interest. It's just got so much character.
Yeah. Even with the lights down, it's still got that ambience, hasn't it?
The studio lights. It conjures up the romance of the people who work so tirelessly then to turn out new episodes of Doctor Who. They were practically on the weekly, weren't they, all the way through the 60s?
Yeah, absolutely. They were on it. That was why every so often you get an episode with one of the regulars missing, because they had to have a week's holiday because they were just in production pretty much 52 weeks of the year, nearest damn it. So it was like a soap opera in those days from that point of view.
Talking about punishing schedules, I think that the final member of our panel, has been punished more than most after how many hours on the panel here with us. But she's back again. There is one born every minute. Charlotte Shields, welcome back.
I've got a lot of practice dealing with what be the nice word? Rowdy bunches of people. Let's put it that way.
Right. I can live with rowdy. I can definitely live with rowdy. How are you?
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, it was mayhem at the weekend. Mother's Day in the UK. So obviously belated Happy Mother's Day to all your mothers, grandmothers, aunts, and everybody else out there, wherever it is applicable. Did you have a good weekend? Did you celebrate at all, either of you?
Yeah, my mum got her usual Baileys, which is her biggest she likes from us all. Original,
Awesome.
Nothing in it. She's made that very clear. None of that mint or rubbish. She just likes the original.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, original and best. Yes, I had a lovely Mother's Day. I got my breakfast made for me.
Oh, that's good.
Yes, it was very nice, and a lovely card. And then obviously I went to see my mum, and
Yes.
it's all very nice. But it does get the more mums involved, the more complicated it gets.
Yeah, so you best just not get involved, Sarah.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, things are going to get, I think that simply complicated here on this edition of Type 40 Live, because all that we've really been doing is doing what we love to do the very, very best, and that's to watch Doctor Who. And you think, what's the big deal in that? But this is a really, really big deal, because this particular slice of Doctor Who, done in this particular way, it wouldn't have happened without Ian Levine and a team of creatives attracting funding and talent from within the community to sort of push forward this particular mission to restore the legacy of the world's longest running, best loved sci-fi and fantasy series, and replacing those episodes so tragically still missing from the archives with reconstructions that befit the dignity and the efforts of the people that did work to that punishing schedule. Now, all of us, we've seen the first fruits of this project, and you're going to get our reactions, our reviews and observations and everything else in between. That's all coming up. But the truth of the matter is, it'll never not be tragic, will it, that there are episodes missing of Doctor Who that we just can't sit down and watch?
I know, it's still a tragedy, isn't it? We talk about this so frequently because it is just such an obsessive subject for Doctor Who fans, because we're just always willing that one of these days one of them will come back in. I'm trying to think how many are missing now. Is it about 91? Is it somebody? I'm sure will tell me in the chat if you don't know, Dan.
It's 97 episodes
97.
that are still
that
missing.
many. God.
That's up to October 2023, 97 unaccounted for, and those missing episodes, they span 26 stories, 10 full serials are missing, but most of the gaps are from seasons 3, 4 and 5, perhaps unsurprisingly, Simon. It was a strange pattern how they went about wreaking havoc on TV history all the way back then, wasn't it?
And the horrifying thing is that pretty much everything still existed in the archive as late as, I think it was about 1976, 77. Everything existed in the archive. They had pretty much everything. And it was only then in the late 70s that they started junking them. So it is quite horrifying when you think about, Tom Baker's first season, pretty much everything, we had it all still at that point. And sadly, the BBC in those days didn't do out of Doctor repeats. They didn't do many repeats at all. They certainly didn't do out of Doctor repeats. And obviously video didn't exist. Sell-through video didn't exist. And so there was no need for them to keep them, other than the fact that they were an absolute television history milestone. And you'd think the BBC might have thought, it's been quite a successful show, Doctor Who. Maybe we should just keep hold of them because they've been quite successful. But sadly, no.
And it's such a shame as well, because obviously I adore the first 3 companions, but the other companions in William Hartnell's run especially, you feel like they've been really misdone, because we don't have so much of Stephen, of Polly, of sort of that era of companion, because they really were the episodes that seemed to suffer.
Yeah, I think I'm correct in saying that Ben and Polly are the 2 most poorly served companions. Hardly anything exists of them. It's so sad.
Obviously, things could be worse. It's thanks to the huge efforts of a number of people over the last 30, 40 years. The number of episodes that were actually destroyed and missing has drastically reduced, hasn't it? I mean, 97 seems like a lot, but the figure before was considerably more. And you think, and we get back what we get back, don't we? But what if you could go about filling some of those gaps? If you could choose, how would you prioritize which stories, episodes to restore first? Would you go by Doctor or by season even? In this particular instance we're going to be talking about today, Ian Levine and his team have an ambition to put a serious dent in that number of 97 by somehow bringing into existence watchable and fitting reconstructions for every episode that hasn't been attempted through animation by BBC Studios or anywhere else officially. Everybody loves a trier, don't they, Simon? And this is what Doctor Who fans, I think there's a spirit in Doctor Who fandom, isn't there, to try and attempt the impossible like this.
Yeah, well, again, we've talked about this before, how Doctor Who fans are just very, very creative. Doctor Who is the kind of show that inspires creation. As we've said many times, Doctor Who is not a passive show. It does inspire people. You want to get more involved in it. You want to get active in it. That's why so many people are watching tonight. People just love it's as I always say, it's far more than a television show. And I get angry when people say it's just a TV show, because it is far more. And it just inspires creativity. And people want to do stuff with Doctor Who. They don't want to just watch it and consume it passively. They want to do I love that. What is
so
that?
Cute. Is that a badge?
I was going to say, is that a badge?
It is. This is a prime example, really, Charlotte, isn't it? Of exactly what Simon was talking about. Considering that those first 2 Doctors, their eras have been greatly affected by this.
Yeah.
The enduring appeal of the characters as brought to life by Patrick Troughton and William Hartnell. People latch onto them, don't they? Successive generations of fans, they latch onto them anyway, and they create artwork. There's new products surrounding them more than ever. I believe the classic series is more alive than ever, Charlotte, partly because of items like this, despite of the missing episodes.
Yeah, and I think, I can't help but think, I think with the first Doctor, I've always thought, because of the reverence both Moffat and Russell in their first runs gave to the first Doctor. I think it sort of built that almost this idea that even me who didn't watch classic, that he was the touchstone, he was the center point of the character, and everything came after him. And you can see any actor in this role that's researched and watched classic, there's a bit of Hartnell in all of them, I think, to some degree.
Yeah.
And I think that's more than others. But yeah, I think there's always been this reverence. And I love that about the first Doctor, considering at times I've always got the impression William himself wasn't quite sure how he was going to be remembered in the role.
Yeah.
There was doubts maybe, or sort of not grievances, but like I said, maybe doubts. I've always had that impression. So it's lovely that it's endured, like you said, his Doctor. I think more than any classic Doctor, honestly, at this point.
Well, he was the trailblazer. And again, to follow on what Charlotte was saying, I think this all came to a head probably in the 50th anniversary year when there was that celebration of all the Doctors, but especially Hartnell. You know, they did the night, didn't it, where they showed the original pilot and An Adventure in Space and Time, and the love and dedication and again reverence that went into showing that documentary. And having that lovely scene at the end where he looks over and he sees Matt Smith's Doctor, and proves that his legacy has enjoyed. I mean, it was a real tear-jerking moment. Yeah, there is so much to be thankful for, and I think it is a misconception that younger fans don't appreciate it, because I think they do. I think more than ever. And I remember a couple of years ago, do you remember there was the big classic rewatch? I think it was on Twitch.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Just before lockdown. So again, that was another way of getting the younger generation in. But again, as we've seen with these Blu-ray releases, anything to do with classic at the minute is just hot property. And it's flying high. It really is.
Yes.
I do wonder, Sarah, about the performers who gave their all week in, week out, who made and built childhoods and created fans like us, particularly in the classic era, I think, although it's not exclusively. But I think particularly of Patrick Troughton, William Hartnell, and numerous other people from the supporting cast. I do wonder sometimes, would they be, to think that so much of their work doesn't exist anymore or isn't known to exist, would they be really crushed by that? But then I think to Patrick Troughton and interviews with him in particular, where he would talk in a very sort of pragmatic way about acting, Simon, and he was probably very aware of the realities of making TV in the 50s and the 60s, and maybe Hartnell was too. I don't know. Maybe they'd be pleased. Maybe William Hartnell would actually be quite thrilled that so much of his material does exist. I don't know of work that he put out there compared to some of the series that are completely lost. We'll never know the answer to that, obviously.
No, we won't. But we know that with William Hartnell, he more than embraced that role. This was far more than just a role to him. He really lived that role. This is why it was just so painful for him to leave the role, because he inhabited it. It was him. He was it. And so, because he was so quintessentially the essence of the Doctor, and as has been said already, every Doctor that has come since has to some degree a line back to William Hartnell, and there are traces of him in there. And I know for a fact, we all know, that William Hartnell would be just, and I hope he's up there somewhere, he'd just be absolutely thrilled to his little socks to know that we are still here 60 years later talking about that show that he loved so passionately. As I say, it was more than just a show to him. He wasn't doing it purely for the money. He took it very, very seriously, the role, and he wanted the absolute best for it, which is one of the reasons why he got sort of cranky on set, because he wanted the best for it. And so he would be just so thrilled to know that legacy still lives on. And that's the tragedy of this, that he never got to realise that we would still be sitting here talking about it 60 years later. Incredible legacy.
It lives on, and even in certain instances where it looks like something has been expunged, that it no longer exists, it's being extinguished, and it's a gap that will never be filled. We are at a place where elements of that are being reinstalled, and revived, and that's what we're going to get into in a little while. Right after we check in with our live chat there across YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. We're joined by other Doctor Who fans itching to know what we're going to get into, what we've got to say about all this. So I think we should go and see what they've got to say and welcome them as well.
Go on then.
You're watching Type 40.
Hey, here we are. If I don't know about you, I'm excited. So is YW here, Charlotte.
I think we're all a bit excited tonight.
Here we are a bit excited.
Lord Thoth says hi, everyone. He's there in the live chat.
Hello.
As is the time scales there.
Hi, Greg.
There he is.
It just kind of, because we're on a different night, it just feel like we're being a bit naughty. We're like, we're staying up late on a school night. Even though it is, Thursday's a weekday night as well. But yeah, it's just not that feeling.
Cybermat Strikes is in too. Hello, everyone. Dalek Masterplan. Is this clickbait? We don't do clickbait. This is Type 40 Live, CM. How very dare you. Welcome back to the show. Good to see you, pal. We have more from YW. We've got the retro doc, Gary Akers.
Hi, Gary.
Hello, Gary.
Hello.
Thank you so much for your company on the last edition of the show, mate. Hope to have you back really, really soon. Wen is also there too.
Hello, Wendy.
Held up. And
Hello, Wen.
Hoodie. It's a hoodie, I think, Simon. Welsh hoodie.
Oh, well,
Yeah, it's very, very, very mean and moody, that is. I like it.
Yeah. Lots and lots of hellos and highs and all that jazz here in the live chat. Garbage is here too. He's coming.
Hello, Garbage.
I think he's on the blink. Garbage is on the blink. He needs sorting out. Jamie Reese says hello. Oh, he's got Davros there. That's a command, I think, rather than a greeting.
Yeah.
I think we're getting shouted at by that picture.
Yeah.
It does look that way, doesn't it? It does look that way. Fez and TARDIS hoodie, regular night for me, confesses Craig Lightower.
Craig.
Hello, Craig.
Good to have you back. John Smith's in too. Hi, John. Good to see you, John. And so is Black Glove Studios' very own Chris McKeon. Good to have you there.
Hello, Chris.
Dwarf Productions is there as well. He's busy making models, but watching us at the same time.
Hello, Tom.
Tasking master there. Lovely stuff. Gary Browser too. Yeah. What can the classic be? Well,
could it be, Gary?
I'm practically a classic myself. Grumpy old Bob's in. He's definitely a classic here. Grumpy old Bob 56.
I love that name.
Yeah, but you can't say hello everyone with an exclamation mark with a name like Grumpy old Bob. You've got to be something really, really grumpy.
No. We do have Heretic back in the chat too, all the way from Sonny Dudley, and Darren here as well with his evening all. How's Lenny? Asks Tom from T-Dwarf.
Yeah, Lenny is absolutely fine. He's curled up on the sofa under his blanket, keeping cozy.
And we have John as well from the highly prestigious
Dalek. Hey, John!
Right. The content creators there at Dalek 6388. If they don't know it's about the Daleks, then it's really not worth knowing, is it? That's how it goes.
Right. Pretty much everything I know about the Daleks I've learned from Dalek 6388.
Me too.
The Dalek Masters are very much with us. Richard Brooks. Mark Milford says, hello, Who family.
Hello, Mark.
Oh, it's so lovely to see you. We are a family. Thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome back, Mark. He's a good egg, what we call a good egg. Who else is here? Oh, it is jumping. It's jumping. And people are exchanging their memories about missing episodes, arguing about how many episodes are actually missing, and people debating whether it's Troughton or Hartnell for them. It hurts. Troughton has so many missing episodes. He's my second favourite Doctor. Only reason he's not my favourite is because of Sylvester McCoy. So yeah, people trading all sorts of these. I knew a kid in school who swore that someone in his family had fury from the deep. The fandom used to be rife with stories like that, didn't it, Simon?
Yeah, 100%.
Maybe some corners of it still are, and we just don't hear so much.
I think there are still rumours that kick around. It's just that in those days, because before the internet existed, rumour was all just sort of spread through word of mouth, and so the internet kind of reduces that somewhat because we kind of know now what the truth is. Who can say?
there's a kind of, I suppose, there's the connectivity between all of us fans. We tend to largely be talking about the same things at the same time, Charlotte.
Well, yeah, we all sort of have the same topics almost, it feels like, buzzing around our heads.
Thank you, everybody who's joined us so far. Keep those comments and queries coming. We want your input too. We know several people are talking about it in particular. We had a time model that says Type 40 is so naughty. We assume after watching this, we only have to face Friday. So, yes, we are sorry for any disorientation that one may feel after Type 40 live. Yeah, so keep it all coming. Nathan Huggins is back. Love his podcast, says Nathan. His? Who's his? Do you mean this podcast? He does mean. I'm going to take it you mean this one. And why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Yeah, keep them all coming. We've got a lot to get into. This is a very exciting new present to unwrap, and we're going to get into the details about how and why and what we think, and we're going to have a cheeky, sneaky peek as well, courtesy of Ian Levine and the team that have so tirelessly put this together. Before we get to that, though, I want to say thank you again for all the support, engagement, and enthusiasm around everything we're doing here at Type 40 and Type 40 Live. Lots more things coming up in 2024. But if you want the latest podcasts, get over to our home feed at type40.podbean.com. That's where you can find, all of them. Basically all of them, including our latest one. That was our chat with Tony Jordan from last week. He came in and he explained, he rolled out his expansive plans for the Doctor Who Appreciation Society that are going to take them all the way through to their own 50th birthday. Very, very exciting, all that is. And we were privileged to spend that time with Tony, and he faced all our questions. The poor guy. I think he fared pretty well, all things considered, pretty well. Okay. And yes, more Type 40 Live, of course, later in the week. That's coming up later. We'll give you some more details about that. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Check you're still subscribed and hit the cloister bell to get all our notifications too.
The only way you can help save the universe is by watching Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast.
Okay, let's get into it. The Nightmare Begins is the first of 12 episodes of the epic story, the Dalek Masterplan. Only 3 of those 12 are known to exist in the BBC archives. The other 9 are still missing, sadly. The general lay of the land with this story is that landing on the planet Kemble in the year 4000, the Doctor and his companions, Stephen and Katerina, meet Space Security Service agent Brett Vian. They discover that the Daleks are plotting with other galactic representatives to conquer the Earth, then the universe, using this time destructor. And the Travellers resolve to warn all the authorities that the guardian of the solar system, with a straight face, Mavic Shen, he's also involved in the scheme, and that's where it all just gets bigger and bigger and wilder, and the Daleks are right at the dead centre of it. Only 3 episodes of this colossal epic are known to exist, Simon. So yeah, there've always been methods to experience this, be it through the target book, be it through the audio or the reconstructions that have been done previously. But there's always a barrier there, isn't there? And in restoring any sort of chunk of classic Doctor Who that's missing, it's about eliminating as many barriers as possible, isn't it? And as quickly as possible, so the viewer connects to the material.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, only episodes 2, 5, and 10 exist. Episode 2 is the one that turned up most recently. Only a few years ago, episode 2 turned up. 5 and 10 were kicking around for quite a while. And I remember seeing episodes 5 and 10 back in sort of probably the mid 80s, I would imagine. I think I saw them at a convention or some such. And the difficulty is with watching episodes in isolation, away from the main body of the story, it's really hard to get a feel for what the story truly would have looked like. Because I mean, The Enemy of the World is kind of the classic example of where we had, I think it was episode 3 was kicking around for ever. And it was just one of the dullest episodes that anybody's ever seen in their entire life. And we assumed that the whole of The Enemy of the World was going to be dull as ditch water as well. And of course it isn't. That was a real revelation when it turned up in 2013, because suddenly you realise actually Enemy of the World's a pretty good romp. And so it's really hard to watch these sort of orphan episodes and truly get a feel for what would the story have been like. And so there's no answer to that short of starting to reconstruct them.
And also, when what we have got, what does remain, say, starts at episode 2 or 3, there's always that frustration that we don't get to see how the story begins. In the case of the Dalek Masterplan, it's the nightmare that begins. That was the title of that first episode. It originally aired on Saturday, the 13th of November, 1965. Of course, the epic ran all the way through to the end of January the following year. But this particular episode doesn't exist anymore. So you've immediately got Sarah. You think, well, I want to experience this story. And so you go, which does exist? I don't know about you. I can't remember precisely every single episode that does still exist throughout the 60s. There are probably people out there that can. I'm not one of them. So when I get to a story, I think, okay, I want to make the effort to experience that. When I get to one of the first episodes, isn't there in particular, I think there's another barrier. Because I think if you're able to see the first one, your imagination, you can sort of make up for what doesn't exist afterwards.
I started rewatching the Hartnell era pretty much from the anniversary, and of course that's pretty linear, apart from obviously Marco Polo and the Reign of Terror. But at least with the Reign of Terror, you've nearly got the complete story, and at least you know how it starts, and you can kind of feel your way through that. And then so I just kind of hit my stride till obviously I've got to season 3. And it's ground to a complete halt, and also because how many companions change in series 3, it is such a whiplash to suddenly go from Vicky and Stephen to a little bit of Katerina, and I completely forgot about Sarah Kingdom until this story, and then obviously you've got Dodo appears
and disappears again.
And disappears again as quick. And then suddenly it's Ben and puts it. You're like, whoa, what on earth is going? And Charlotte was right what she said at the beginning. You just can't get that connection, not the same way that I had with Ian and Barbara and Susan and Vicky. So it is difficult. I mean, just look at this. You've got a brilliant title. It's really. Yeah. You want to know what's happened to Stephen, because obviously the Myth Makers is missing as well. So unless you've read the book or whatever, you've got no idea what has actually happened to Stephen, why he's like that in the first place, and it is so frustrating.
I must be honest, I think The Nightmare Begins is one of the best titles of any episode of all time. It's very 21st century. In that it's not sort of the something of the something. It's quite out there. I just think it's brilliant.
It's got such a nice vagary about it.
Yes.
Like, it's not telling you what the threat is. It's not telling you the monster.
Yeah.
That could be for anything.
But it is saying watch it, isn't it, Charlotte? It's saying watch this.
Yes.
Charlotte, it reminds me of the Phantom Menace in the Star Wars.
That works. But I agree definitely, because what we were saying about that first episode missing, it can be such a barrier, because with Classic, it's so clear that when they were writing these, they wrote it for the episode total. If it was a 4-parter, it was paced for 4 parts. It was written for 4 parts. If it was a marathon sort of 6-parter or bigger, it was written with that in mind. So when it comes to characters and plots and pacing and all those, if you miss the first 2 parts or the first part, you do feel like, God, what have I let myself in for? Almost when you're watching part 3. And you just need that beginning chunk just to be that grounding force for the story, or just to set up the main sort of start of the stakes. And then you can see what they evolve into.
I often think, Charlotte, of the children who watched these stories go out originally, these adventures, who've who've cherished them over the intervening decades, whether they still exist or not, and how it made them feel, wondering where this story was going to go. Now, Ian Levine in particular, this is Ian here. So Ian is a very high profile and very vocal too. I don't think you'd mind me saying that. Doctor Who fan, a big advocate of everything the BBC are doing with that official line of Blu-ray box sets too. He doesn't hide his enthusiasm under a bushel there, but neither does he hide his frustration with some of the choices the BBC studios make as regards how they're going to restore and reconstruct some of these classic episodes. He feels very, very strongly about certain editorial factors and about what does and doesn't make for the best reconstruction. And rather than just talking about it, Ian and the team that he's assembled have made this happen. They've revived this classic episode of Doctor Who. The Nightmare Begins as best they can, marshalling some talents together that I can barely imagine. But so it does. It's here. It exists. All 22 minutes are there. They've been restored. They've been reconstructed. And we were very fortunate to be sent a link by Ian, invited to watch it and to talk about it too here at Type 40 Live. But obviously for us to talk about something that we've seen in full that you might not have, we appreciate that. We're at a bit of an advantage there, but at least we can play you the trailer here. This is a feast for the eye stalks. If you're a Dalek, of course. If you're a human, it's just your eyes. But here we have this is the trailer for this fabulous achievement of the full restoration of The Nightmare Begins. Check it out. In a second.
It was going so well.
There we go.
Chilling.
That is such an amazing trailer.
It's just a superb trailer. You just want to watch it, don't you? You just want to watch that.
Go back and watch it all over again. This is Doctor Who, the Daleks Masterplan, AI-assisted reconstruction. That sounds painful, doesn't it, Simon? But the truth of reality is, here we are in the 21st century, in 2024. We're told so often about all these amazing things that AI can do, but a lot of them are quite scary. this is a really sort of positive and cuddly thing that AI has assisted in making happen. So the full 22-minute version of this episode, we've all seen it now. I suppose the most obvious, the opening question has to be, did you enjoy it, Simon?
Oh, did I enjoy it? Seriously, it gave me goosebumps. It was genuinely like sitting and watching a real episode. We know that it's a reconstruction. We know that it's AI, and there are things that give that away, as we'll talk about as the conversation goes on. But did I enjoy it? Yeah, it's just fantastic. It's the first time I've ever watched that episode. I've seen the Telesnaps reconstruction many years ago, but I have very, very little experience of that first episode or any of the Daleks Masterplan, and so I have to be honest. It was an absolute thrill to sit down and watch what felt like almost a rediscovered episode. It was almost as though it had just been discovered in Outer Mongolia and sent back to the BBC. That's how it felt. It's
22 minutes, Charlotte. Obviously, that's pretty much standard for classic episodes of Doctor Who, particularly in the 60s. And traditionally, some of them, they start slower than others. Don't they? Some of them pull you in more or less than others. How did you feel about this story, and how did the job the team have done in bringing it back to life, how well did it recreate that spell for you?
Well, I sort of knew nothing. I sort of got the link and I was like, oh, I didn't know what on earth it was.
Bless you.
So I think that if I wanted to go in like that, because I was like, I didn't want to have any preconceptions going in. And I think once you sort of understand there's going to be some uncanny valley because of the technology there, I think that's unescapable. But what did impress me, once my head sort of got past that a little bit, is just how well the faces got captured. Because that's what I've always said about the animations for Classic Who. That some animations, when they're good, they can do that. They can get the little mannerisms, they can get the performances. And here you've got them. There's no sort of is or is it there. It's there. It's Hartnell. It's the supporting cast. And it's sort of so lovely to see that properly. That's what really impressed me, that aspect of it.
Because obviously the performers, they worked on this material, vocally and physically as well, to inhabit these characters. It's great that we have the soundtracks, the people who kept the off-air soundtracks of the episodes all those decades. Several individuals did that. It's great we have those, but when we can't see them, obviously the performance is a full thing, isn't it, Simon? And obviously we've had various forms of reconstruction in the past, but most of them have been statics. The work of Loose Cannon, for example. Loose Cannon worked on reconstructing these episodes, including The Nightmare Begins, over an extended period of time, didn't they? Using still images and captions and sort of eventually kind of flash animation. They worked their way through the entire range, and they went back and they redid some, and that did work for the time. And now we've got the case where BBC Studios have gradually been making these animated versions in both black and white and colour, full animations with various different teams, but there's no consistency there. And now, as we're getting deeper into that range, there's a lot of liberties being taken as well, editorially and creatively. So they don't really stand either. They're sort of becoming their own thing, for better or for worse. I mean, I think most people would say unarguably worse in that case. All of those. It's getting further away, though, isn't it, from being an authentic version of the experience that people would have had, those children would have had back in 1965. It's
the animations as they're released now by the BBC are just beginning to feel further and further away from anything that we really recognise, truthfully, as Doctor Who. The Celestial Toymaker is the latest. I mean, in my estimation, it is an abomination. It's nothing like the original was meant to be. It's obviously at the moment I think it's only the trailer that exists. That's all I've seen so far, and it's all I want to see. It's horrific. It doesn't bear any resemblance to anything that I recognise as Doctor Who. What I found just utterly remarkable about this reconstruction of The Nightmare Begins is if you squint your eyes, you genuinely could be watching here an original episode of Doctor Who. It is as close as we are ever going to get. Short of that episode coming back to the BBC, I do believe this is as close as we're really ever going to get to what The Nightmare Begins would have looked like, because we're not likely to come up with any more information. We're not likely to come up with any more photos, any more photographic reference. So we're never going to have anything better to work on. So whilst the technology will undoubtedly improve on the software that's being used for this stuff, what they've done with this reconstruction of The Nightmare Begins, certainly at the moment, is as close as I can get to what it must have been like to sit down and watch that episode in 1965. And it is truly jaw-dropping. And the reason it was jaw-dropping for me was because I've become used to reconstructions either being, as you say, Dan, very static stills, or what is becoming increasingly difficult to watch animations. I wasn't expecting this, which is an AI reconstruction, and it's uncanny in how close it is to what the original would have been like. And so it literally knocked me sideways, because I was expecting, I don't know, I was expecting almost sort of crude animation, sort of cut out characters, sort of, maybe photographic blokes sort of jumping across the screen. I don't know what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting this.
I had no idea, because I've seen Ian speak about this. I've heard him speak. He's published a review of the Celestial Toymaker animation. He's been very vocal about that. But he's also been very, very vocal about the effort of putting this together, of what he wishes to achieve. And AI seems a bit still to me like magic, Sarah. And so I've heard and I've seen, we're getting this person together, we're working on this, working on that, working on the other. And I still found it hard to imagine, well, can it really, because we've all seen images, haven't we? Photographic images and animations that are achieved by AI. And a lot of them look kind of similar to how Simon described. And you think, don't let that anywhere near lovely, cozy, old classic Doctor Who. And then you click play on this, and it is just gorgeous. It's completely off. It's like being wrapped up in 100% classic Doctor Who.
Yeah, I mean, again, like Charlotte, I had no preconceptions going in. I didn't really know the story, and I wasn't sure what I was going to expect. But having come fresh from, I watched Marco Polo, and that was just the telly snaps. Like you say, it's very, very static. Lots of reading involved, and yeah, obviously it looks gorgeous, but you don't get to see the characters move. And then I've just come off the back of Galaxy 4, and as much as I enjoyed the story, the animation, it's so flat. It is, I'm not really impressed at all. So I was kind of thinking, well, this surely is going to be like the best of both worlds, but I wasn't prepared for how realistic it looked. I mean, when it first starts, as Simon says, it's like a proper episode, and I was kind of taken aback. Like, this feels real. And again, I don't know what I would expect. I think I was expecting like partial animation, kind of like in the Daleks in colour. When you first see that TARDIS, and you can tell it's really animated, and it doesn't look right.
It doesn't sit quite right.
Yeah, I thought, this is the best we're going to get. This is what it's going to be like, and to actually see the characters walking around, it was really like a jaw drop moment. There are a couple of instances where you can tell it is AI, some of the facial movements, but for the most part, I mean, as you can see on the screen, absolutely fantastic.
Mavic Chen speaks. We get to see him deliver this speech. It feels like we're actually watching the episode.
And I've got to give credit to how well they've matched it. It doesn't work. I think when characters are speaking fast, you can kind of tell with the mouth movements. It's not perfect. Yeah. But with Mavic, they've got it spot on, and it was just like, I'm really watching this. This is incredible, and the stuff in the jungle, that's where it really shines. And when the Daleks come, it's absolutely sublime. I'm really, really impressed with the effort that's gone into this.
Because I suppose though, what Sarah's just describing there, Simon, describing those scenes in the jungle. It's one thing to have kind of the standard kind of BBC sets and talking heads, but scenes like the scenes in the jungle, a lot of that with the movement of the camera would have done a lot of conveying the story, the sense of threat.
Yeah,
and it just isn't the same, is it? When you try and do that with something very two-dimensional, very flat.
And the fact remains with this reconstruction, obviously, they've been working their socks off with it, and I'm sure they could work till the ends of time and still keep tweaking it. But there is a limit as to what they can do. And so truth is, it's still relatively static. There isn't anywhere near as much camera movement as I feel sure there is on the original camera script, which I haven't had a chance to look at yet to compare what they've done. But I'm in no doubt at all. It's obvious there's going to be far more intercutting and far more camera movement in that original episode than they are able currently with this episode reconstruction to do. So you have to accept that it's going to be more static than it would have been. But that's to sound nitpicky, and it's not meant as a nitpick at all. It's that's the limitations they've got, and it doesn't detract from it at all, because you know what you're going into with this episode. It is obvious that it is a reconstruction. You know that there are genuinely bits in it when I was thinking, I don't know how they've done that. That's undoubtedly. There are bits in there I'm thinking, I just don't know how they did it. And then there are other bits where, yes, admittedly, the mouths don't move quite in sync. It's not perfect. But as I say, it's really churlish to even bring that kind of stuff up, because watching the episode as an experience is literally, it's mind blowing. It's as I say, it's as close as you're going to get to watching that original episode. And it was very easy for those 22 minutes to just completely suspend my disbelief that I was watching a reconstruction. And whereas in the past I've just found it difficult to get through the photographic reconstructions because they are just so static and they give you so little feel for the episode, you've got to make a big leap of imagination. With this, I didn't. I could follow the story, no problem. My attention didn't wander. Could I have sat down and watched 12 episodes reconstructed like this, pretty much in one go? You bet. I wasn't bored by the end of it. I have
to say that, and the 22 minutes flew. It felt like 10. It really did.
The episode was written by Terry Nation, wasn't it? And he'd been obviously he'd created the Daleks, wrote the preceding serials. And you'd think by this time he'd have been running out of ideas, but it still feels really tight. Charlotte, what were you going to say? Sorry.
I was going to say, what's interesting here is actually in this opener, there's this real sense of urgency and action about it, whether it's the two sort of soldier characters that get stranded and try and get in the TARDIS, whether it's the Doctor coming across the Daleks. There's a lot of movement here. There's a lot of moving parts. I think what's impressive here, and that's what really afterwards I was thinking about. You've got to get the lip movement. You've got to, like I said, get the physical movement as best as you can. It's not just one aspect they had to do here. And it's just so impressive that they got so many aspects, especially as we're talking about lip sync, for example. And I noticed that because even now, you've got people that create fresh new animation with actual recording that they do themselves, and they can't lip sync.
No.
Whether it's
no, they can't.
It doesn't matter, does it really?
No. Yeah. So but it impressed me because it was done so well here.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much, there wasn't any line that I watched and went, God, that mouth's not saying that.
Well,
I never thought that.
It was done so well. It was done so well, Charlotte, that until Sarah mentioned it, I thought, oh God, yeah. I completely took that for granted watching this. That there was nobody kind of where, like when you watch an episode of a Japanese movie that's been badly dubbed and you can see that they're saying one thing and you're hearing something else.
Well, that's the thing.
Once
growing up, I've watched some of that stuff, so I can sort of, I know what it means by lip sync and how if you do it wrong, you can do it wrong. So I sort of noticed it just because I was impressed. It wasn't like a thing of like, God, that's bad. It was just like,
it was very impressive. It was actually. If anything, okay, you do notice the occasional times that it slips, but overall, you're just really impressed that it matches up as well as it does. It's quite amazing.
It's like what I love, the mannerism they got so perfect here of Hartnell's, which is the little impish laughs.
He
does he does that loads in this stuff.
Yes, he does. He chuckles all the way through, doesn't he?
The whole way, and none of them feel like they was like canned. So it just felt like, no, that's William's performance right there. when he's just utterly trickling away like a little maniac.
Yes.
And
He's
that
quite
would,
bossy in this episode.
that would have got lost if it had just
Yes.
been the telesnaps. You wouldn't have
Yeah.
got that. I mean, the stuff with the magnet chair, I was absolutely howling. I really was. And it wouldn't have translated any other way, I don't think.
Oh God, I forgot to name the companion when she's trying to get the pills.
Katerina.
And he's just like, just get them. Like you can feel his frustration.
Yeah. And how much of a joy. I mean, I got, as soon as I saw Nicholas Courtney,
I know.
I was just absorbed, and I was like, how wonderful is this? Like, it's Nicholas Courtney in that TARDIS with the Hartnell. And I knew it was just a joy. And I just kind of forgot about everything else.
It was just great to see. I mean, for people of a certain age, myself included, it was wonderful to see Brian Cant brought to life. People of a certain age will remember Brian Cant from, what was he in? I think it was Play School, wasn't it? It was Play Away and Play School. And so to see him brought to life so incredibly, it's just. You know, what I found amazing was they've even managed to sort of get head movements. You literally see heads swing from one side to another in a shot and then start talking. I'm the same as you, Dan, in that AI is like magic to me. I still don't quite understand. Well, I don't understand it at all. I can't get my head around it. And so to see the kind of stuff that they were doing in here, I just don't know how it's done. Just quite breathtaking. Well, and just finally, Dan, as a result of that, it just shows up the BBC animations for what they are, because this is what we want. And I don't know why we're getting really poor quality animations if somebody can do something like this. I don't get it.
With conviction and talent, and I've no doubt time and a few quid, and lots of perseverance and a clear sight on that which they want to achieve. And their sort of watchwords, which I would say that it's either the word authenticity or something the equivalent thereof. But when I think about how the supporting characters and the main characters, but obviously when you start a fresh Doctor Who serial and you're introduced to a bunch of characters you don't know, you've probably seen a couple of still images of them, and that's that. You don't know who they are, so the actor has to sell you on that they are that character. And again, when we see these two characters on screen, like the lady on the right, she looks very, very concerned. And because in this reconstruction, it's done so beautifully, that's conveyed in the tones of her face. It all shifts the way a human face shifts enough to cheat me, to think that I've watched this actual full episode.
Well, what's impressive what you're saying about her face, and this is what I found with these two, the fact that they're having a little barmy, they're having a little argument between them, and you get that in the facial expression.
Yes.
Like I said, you do have to sort of, sometimes because it's AI, the heads can look a little bit weird, but you just have to accept because of the tech that's going to happen. But like I said, they're having a little it feels like two workers in an office having a little argument between themselves.
I think the thing that surprised me, Charlotte, was that where there are glitches in this, and as I say, we've got to really emphasize here that it's really nitpicky to even call these glitches. But where they are, it's not quite perfect. It doesn't lift you out of it at all. No. I didn't feel disconnected. Whereas when the animations have got it so badly wrong on occasion, and it's really jarring, it's poor animation, that immediately lifts me out. So with this, I was able to see through it all, and it just all sort of blended into one, and it worked as a whole. Whereas, as I say, at other times, I felt lifted out of a story with something that's just poor quality. And you don't get that in this.
What it felt like to me, to compare to animations, not all of them, because like I said, I've said this before, Evil of the Daleks is beautiful. I adore that animation. But some of them, it almost feels that whoever was working on it doesn't really get classic. Whoever that was working on certain animations, they don't quite understand it. And here, this felt like the people working on this absolutely lived and breathed classic and understood it, which came through for me 10-ton, and I'm not even somebody who sort of fell in love with classic first. I'm a new Who person first.
No, I agree. You can see it, especially in the close-up shots of all the actors. And I have to say, Katerina looks absolutely beautiful, and it's nice to see her.
Yes, she does.
Because I've never known this character. She's just a name and the odd image. So to actually see and hear her, move, as much as she can do, that that was a joy. And and see her in a costume and face off against Brett. If you're lying to me, the Doctor's going to be angry, and you get that little.
She seemed a very rounded character, and this conveyed that really, really beautifully. Conveyed her performance, how she was looking after Stephen, as you say, how she was being strong with Brett. I thought it's all the dynamics between those characters all survived into this version. Papa Laz in the chat says none of you have watched the Loose Cannon Recon, have you? I've seen them. You've seen them too, haven't you, Simon?
Yeah, absolutely. I can jump in there and say absolutely. I have seen the Loose Cannon Reconstruction, and so as a result of that, I know that obviously that's taken from telesnaps. So that's why again this reconstruction that we're talking about now is gets the thumbs up from me because of the fact that it so closely follows what the episode would have looked like. So I think, Papalaz, I think maybe you're misunderstanding what we're talking about here. What we're saying is this is as faithful a reconstruction as you can get. And the fact that it's so close to the Loose Cannon Reconstruction in the shots that it uses, and again, I know, Papalaz, I know you've picked up and said this shot is from the Loose Cannon Reconstruction. Yeah, spot on. That's the whole point of the reconstruction we're talking about now. Is it follows as close as we're going to get what the episode would have looked like, which is why it's so similar to the Loose Cannon Reconstruction. But, and this is the crucial thing, unlike the Loose Cannon Reconstruction, it's not static. It's moving. All of the stuff you're seeing, it's like watching a moving Loose Cannon Reconstruction, and that's what's so watchable about it.
To create things that weren't in that original episode, that would be completely the opposite to the objective, I believe, of Ian and his team in the first place. Speaking of whom, we have been joined in the live chat there by Ian Levine himself. I'm loving the praise. Thank you. Well, thank you.
Well deserved, Ian. We salute you, sir. Really we salute you.
Very impressed.
Fabulous stuff. What else? We've got several comments here in the live chat about various different things. Let's go and see what some of them have got to say. Gary Browser says, I spoke to someone who watched it as a casual fan. I said, what left an impression on you? And he said, Viagra plants. Really scared him. Again, it's about conveying the threat, recreating the experience, and telling the story. We just want to be told the story, Sarah, don't we? Like we were Ian when he was, however old he was probably about 4 or 5 or something like that. We want to be that little kid sat in his shorts, eating his beans on toast or whatever, his or hers.
Again, and that was another wonderful scene with the what's he called? Brett's companion in the jungle. When he stays behind and you get in that dread and he's looking.
Oh, he's petrified.
And it really conveys that threat. And then especially when he realises it isn't the plant, it is a Dalek. He's like, just brilliant.
I've got a question about this though.
Yes.
The Dalek voices. Are they new Dalek voices?
No, they're the original voice. They're just the classic Dalek voices are very different.
Oh, because it made me think, maybe this is just my head, I thought I heard Nick Briggs.
No,
maybe they're just similar.
No, I didn't catch. I didn't catch that. I think maybe it's in our heads as well. Maybe we're imagining that as well as the extra frames. And Nigel David has joined us a little later than usual. Not what kept you, Nigel. Some great stuff. You can go back and watch it later. There's lots more great stuff to come. He said he's missed the start. For Gary Aker says, for a lot of classic Who, we have to use our imaginations to fill in what the effects couldn't. And he believes that this is kind of an extension of that conceit. I see what you mean, Gary. I suppose, particularly as the decades roll on.
Yeah, maybe. I can agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, but I believe that a lot of the things that looked dated 20, 30 years ago now, things pass through a bit of a filter with that, and they go from looking dated, like episodes of shows made in the 2000s now look dated. But shows made in the 80s, now we accept them wholly for what they are because they belong to themselves and that world that they're in. And it just seems to be something that everything passes through, because I never think of 60s. I could watch 50s and 60s stuff now and just completely escape into that world. I think I was just born too late. I think that's what it was, Gary.
And there you go. Ian's corrected me about the Dalek voices. Thank you, Peter Hawkins and David Graham.
Yeah,
I think
we've got Nick in that.
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
But it doesn't help though when he replaces, because on the iPlayer, Day of the Daleks, it's a special edition, and it is the one with Nick.
Oh, so they have had this classic before.
So you've still got the 70s. Footage, and then Nick's fire. That's a bit naughty. It's a bit naughty replacing it.
We've a further comment here from Ian, who says, yesterday I got 7 minutes of part 3 and I threw it back because it had 35 major faults. I demand perfection with this. The tragedy is that the BBC will never touch it. It is a great tragedy, Ian. You have our support here. We have lots of comments, in fact, from Ian and various other people. Yes, Ian is right.
He's corrected me as well. Apparently, there were no telesnaps for this particular episode. So I must be honest, I'm intrigued as to how we know what it would have looked like. I know Ian has said that he took notes during the production of it. So maybe that's where we've got it from. But as I say, it certainly feels authentic. It feels authentic, and that's the difference.
I am staggered that there were no telesnaps.
Yeah.
For this, I mean, now you've said it, Ian. I remember. It's one of those things. As
soon as you told, of course, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I'd forgotten. I must be honest. But again, this is where this reconstruction scores. And again, to go what's been said about loose cannon reconstruction, it's nothing against the loose cannon at all. And I know they added CGI elements to it as time went on. But again, it's just trying to get across that with this particular reconstruction of Ian Levine's, it all flows as a whole. It feels very, very complete. It feels like a finished episode, or as near as damn it as we're going to get in the next few years. And so that's why it scores for me. It just became very, very watchable.
No, Peter Hawkins and David Graham. God forbid, says Ian Levine in live chat. The Varga plants are scary in the novel. I can't wait to see this, says Richard Brooks. What are Varga plants?
I know this is the best comment of the night.
Yes.
Are they evil people killing plants or something?
Yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
Basically.
Tom has made a Varga plant in a flower pot.
Tom, we need a photo of a Varga plant in a flower pot.
Don't just tell us about it. You've got to show us. Douglas Camfield was a genius. Again, adds Ian Levine in the live chat. I don't think anybody would argue that at that point. Graham Ince says, I'm so excited by what I'm hearing. I can't wait to see this. And we go, more funny comments here. Did Bernard Breslau call it? It's all about the Varga plants, but this just goes to prove, doesn't it? I suppose what that comment was saying, the little things, because I think when we watch any story of classic Doctor Who, and we may watch it all in one evening or piecemeal, but it tends to sort of all cluster together, doesn't it, Charlotte? And we forget that these were watched 22 minutes at a time by kids. Ian said that he was 12 when he saw this, by kids between the ages of 7 up to sort of 12, 13, 14, and they would wait those seven days. It must have been, I mean, I remember to some extent what it was like in the late 70s and through the 80s, and that was bad enough. But I think in the 60s, maybe I look back on the 60s with too much romance. I don't know. Ian McLachlan used to say to me, I was a kid in the 80s. He used to say that I got a really romanticized view of the 60s. Ian McLachlan did. I wonder if Ian Levine would agree. But I'd still like to think, I know that that real life wasn't in black and white then, Charlotte, but
No, but here's the thing, it doesn't matter. People said to me, because I've been saying, I'm sort of still discovering classic Who. I'm trying my best. Yes. People say to me, "Oh God, you must hate the black and white," and I go, "No, Like, there's so many moments I adore of William, and Patrick Troughton's pretty much my favourite classic Doctor at this point. And it's because, like we were saying about the performances, about the people on that set, about the absolute joy and the love of the stories they had in classic. The colour doesn't matter. And I think even this proves it even more, that because you've got some of the other parts here, that it's not a telly snap, it's not just a static picture and it's black and white. Because there's a bit of movement. To me, it just completely proves that argument that black and white doesn't make it lesser, it makes it just as brilliant to watch.
Yes, there's nothing wrong with black and white at all.
In some ways it enhances it. And
it makes it more atmospheric. Those jungles in this episode, Sarah, look really atmospheric.
It does.
In black and white.
In fact, I can't imagine them. I don't think I'd want to see them in colour.
Well, no, but it's funny because I remember when we had that colour of the Daleks for the 60th, and I showed my dad a bit of it because he watched it when he was a kid, and I said, "Oh, look at this! I managed to colour a classic Doctor Who," and he watched a bit, and afterwards he said to me, "Oh, the Daleks don't look as scary." I said, "What makes you say that?" Because I was intrigued, and he went, "It's the colours. It's because I can actually see they're blue. As a kid, they were more scary because you couldn't see that."
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
He goes, "No, honestly," he goes, I'd rather watch it that way. So yeah, I really do think that the Daleks, especially, I think the Cybermen. That's why I think two of the Cybermen look so gorgeous. They just suit a little bit black and white more because they just make them more alien and more of the other that you can't quite sort of put your finger on.
I mean, this shot here, Charlotte, I mean, if that was colour right, I think the Dalek would get lost for a start by like the colours of the jungle. And it wouldn't look as stark. Like there's just something, and maybe it is romance, maybe it's catching Dan, I don't know. But there is something really romantic about that.
I mean, for me, watching this episode, I think, and this is testimony to the writer, the director, and the cast as well, and Ian and the team who've recreated it and restored it in such an exciting and sort of vibrant way, is that we get what very much transmitted to me, even in just this first opening installment, was the cunning. How cunning the Daleks were at this point, how calculating they are, how threatening they are, and particularly when they're seen from a sort of a worm's eye point of view, how threatening and how ruthless they are and always were. And when it comes to the Doctor, because obviously this is a little while on. In fact, it's closer to the end of his tenure, isn't it, of Hartnell's tenure? How formidable this incarnation of the Doctor really was. This wasn't a doddering old man. He's very bold in this, I think, and he takes every step. He's out. In fact, I don't think. Do we see him with Katarina and Stephen? We don't, do we? He's out there. He's seeking information. He's putting himself in a situation where he doesn't understand, an environment that is alien to him, doesn't know what he's going to find. And there's a heroism, I think, to the Hartnell incarnation of the character that gradually comes through. And here I think we probably see fully formed, coming up against the Daleks and the sort of the indignity. How dare they come onto my show again, Simon? But by the end of it, by this works towards the end of the episode, it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make short work of them. It's gonna take me 3 months, but I'm gonna make short work.
He definitely doesn't feel that he's coming to the end of his run as the Doctor. It doesn't feel like a sort of an old, tired William Hartnell doing this. He still feels, and the character still feels very much the same character as from an unearthly child, quite correctly. It feels very, very true to the character. So it doesn't feel like the sort of character or even the storytelling has sort of gone off at a tangent at this point and sort of drifted away. This still feels a very current, vital show of the time. And I love the first arrival of the Daleks because, again, I had so little familiarity with this particular episode. I couldn't remember how it ended. And so logically, my thought was saying, okay, presumably it's going to end with the reveal of the Daleks. And of course it doesn't. The reveal of the Daleks is very dramatic midway through. from a very, very low angle. So the Dalek looks absolutely as menacing as they've ever looked. So it still feels, as I say, a very vital show at that point. It doesn't feel like it's drifted away whatsoever.
The threat is real.
Yeah, I found that though, because I know there's always a talk about his health, isn't there? William's health near the end.
Yeah.
And I found that, he might fluff the odd line, but like you said, that steeliness and that sort of I'm the one in charge never leaves him, whatever serial, whatever story you're watching. And he just always seems to have this sort of pillar of strength.
Well, it's like how he carries himself. You know, he doesn't walk around like a dodgy. He's upright like this all the time, and he's almost got the Matt Smith swagger. You know, that we've come to know from Know Who. Yes, you know, when he's marching around Daleks, and it's lovely. There's no indication that he is slowing down whatsoever.
And it's all, as you said, Charlotte, it's all the chuckling all the way through. And I love the fact actually we get a brilliant Billy Fluff in there, don't we? There's one Billy Fluff in there that I'm delighted to see that they've left in and they haven't worried about reconstructing. And that's he's really annoyed, isn't he? He's grumpy with Brett Vian, and he's saying all about brain and brawns, and he gets the brain and the brawns the wrong way round. But he recovers brilliantly in a beat. He's recovered and he's back on. And as I say, I'm so pleased that they left that in. It just feels, it makes it feel like an even more genuine episode, that there's a genuine Billy Fluff in there. I loved it. Loved that.
But you also see his intelligence with the chair. That like at the end of the day, he managed to get that as soon as he's in the TARDIS, you think, oh God, this is sometimes like a threat, like somebody's got in the TARDIS. It's like the sanctum, the safe zone. And this soldier he gets in, the younger bloke. And he just, within 2 minutes, he's just dealt with. He's just in that chair. And the doctor's like, well, yeah, you can't move from there. He even says, I can leave. You're fine. He's not going to hurt you too. The companion, basically, like, I'll just leave him there. I'll sort him out later.
I do. I mean, I made notes of certain things in this, and both things were connected to the TARDIS, one of which was the chair, the magnetic chair, a brilliant and sort of batty idea and perfectly Doctor Who idea that we just accept because it's played so well, by Nicholas Courtney. It's played with such conviction that we believe that chair is doing exactly what he says it is. And there's that. And there's a brilliant line that we get from Katerina when she says, only the Doctor works the temple. I got chills when she said that. And I've heard it before. I've seen the loose cannon one, but I haven't seen it in a long time. Partly because I wouldn't say they're impenetrable, but you do have to be in a certain frame of mind to sit and watch a recon. I don't think the only frame of mind you need to be in to sit down and watch this new revolutionary reconstruction of The Nightmare Begins is in the mood for Doctor Who.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Absolutely.
Nigel David said the episode should be released separately as they're done, and then we'll have to wait for the next episode just like the old days. Well, they're beavering away. Ian Levine says, don't forget I animated Mission to the Unknown with David Bush. I offered it to the BBC totally free, but they refused. Talk about being intransigent. Yeah, we've heard the stories. They make their way through to the fandom, and I know that you do talk about this publicly, and you're very frank about it, aren't you? Very open about it all.
I mean, maybe I suppose is there a possibility that when they get round to doing the season 3 Blu-ray box set, maybe they'll come knocking on Ian's door? I'd like to think so, for the stuff that has already been reconstructed and is good to go. We can but hope, because everybody should see this reconstruction. It's just cracking.
He says in another week, Devil's Planet will be all done. Wow.
That's it.
Again, what another brilliant title.
I know. You just want to watch it again, don't you, Sarah?
And we wondered about this earlier on. Ian again in the live chat says, if I had never been born, you would be missing 150 more episodes. So I did wonder how much that number was get down to. Incredible contribution and hard work and perseverance on your part, and all of us are grateful.
All true fans are grateful to Ian Levine for saving those episodes that got saved, and where he was instrumental in bringing to the attention of what was happening to those episodes. And so undoubtedly he is correct. We wouldn't have certain episodes. There's no two ways about it. We've
had people in the live chat, Simon, asking, what is a telesnap? These things because we've heard the word telesnap for years. We assume everybody knows what a telesnap is, but perhaps it is a peculiar thing.
Yeah, it is. It's something that we've got used to. Telesnaps, for those that don't know, basically they would just point a camera at a television screen and take photos of it. I think as it was actually being broadcast, I think it was from the original live broadcast that they would take these telesnaps. And the reason that they would take them is because the episodes were, and this wasn't just with Doctor Who, this was a lot of television, actors would pay somebody to take photos so that they had a record of it for their own purposes, for their careers. And so that's why a lot of the telesnaps were taken. So that's why some of the episodes have telesnaps missing, because for whatever reason, people didn't want a record of that particular episode. And that's what telesnaps are. There you go.
Rob Alexander adds, such an improvement on the traditional telesnap retcon. Doctor Who has always embraced technology. Now technology is returning the favour. So engaging. Yeah. Beautifully put, Rob. I like that. I'm going to be nicking that. We've got Jesse Orta, who says that the animation's really bringing in a new audience. I think not. They should gear these to the target audience. I completely agree. Nathan says it needs fine-tuning, but it's closer than any other retcon. Do this please, but a little more, he asks. And Mark Milford suggests that we are on the verge of being able to produce our own original Doctor Who, Charlotte, as an extension of what this may. I mean, AI seems to have come on so far in just a couple of years, doesn't it? And it's right that Mark's been stimulated by Ian's achievement just in the trailer that we've been able to show, and is wondering what could possibly be further down the line. I hope that Ian takes that as a compliment too, Charlotte.
Yeah, it's like we said, it's the fact that it feels like people, if you just sort of realise what it is. It feels like actual people, actors on set, interacting with each other.
Yes.
And that was something we would never be able to recreate. And that's what we've always said. Those performances are special because only those actors could do it on that set. And now with this technology, it's almost like, and I've always thought this faithfully, bringing certain people back. Like we've lost Nicholas Courtney, and we've all said we all feel that whenever the brig gets brought up, how much we adore that actor and that character. So the fact that almost we can revisit him without, if it's done rightfully, if it's done tastefully and with respect, we can get him back. And that's what I found because I didn't even know he was in this. And that was a complete surprise. I had no idea he'd be.
Yeah. Those are the moments.
When his face
I envy you so much, Charlotte.
Like,
I know, it's great.
God, that's him, and he's young, and he's
no Tash.
And he was. I mean, he was later in life as well, but he was a handsome bastard as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He really was a handsome man.
It's like we've said about we miss people like Sarah Jane and Elizabeth, and I can't help but think we could have her back if it's done correctly.
But I mean, I must be honest, I agree with Ian Levine, who's commented, I only want to see AI recreate what is lost, not try to create new. Yeah, that's my feeling. I don't like seeing people who are now no longer with us recreated in new material. The point of this, obviously, is it's recreating something that is lost rather than someone that is lost.
Something they gave us, something of themselves, Simon, that they gave us in the first place, that we were careless enough as a society, as a culture, to I was going to say mislay, but to destroy. To
dispose of.
To destroy. As Ian knows better than anybody else. There's several people asking here in the live chat, where can we see the full episode? It is, I'm well aware that talking about something that people can't see, it may seem a little, you're probably hungry to see more. We'll try and get you the information about how this could become available to you. You can see it for yourselves. We'll get that as soon as we can. Ian is funding these through his team and through PayPal. I do know that much. So what I'll try and do is get the information and get some sort of link, and we can put it in the description of the video too. How does that sound? More comments. More comments here. Yes, Ian. Yeah, we completely agree with that. If ever Type 40 does a live version of Dalek's Masterplan, I want to play Varga Plan. Petitions Gary Akers there. We'll note that down. We'll file that.
You've got that, but you've got that rolled, Gary. It's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
That is exactly right. As papas, they used as many sources as possible. Then they made composite images.
And I think that's sort of in connection with the sort of telesnaps, the loose cannon reconstructions and other reconstructions that go on. Obviously, the photos from behind the scenes taken during rehearsals. They would always on an afternoon of the camera rehearsals take photographs then, and so I'm assuming that those are the photos that were maybe used in the loose cannon reconstruction.
I think, in case you hadn't noticed, I'd say that it's a resounding both thumbs up.
Yeah.
I loved this. I'm very, very excited about it, despite my misgivings, my trepidations, just as we were saying, Charlotte, about AI and everything that the future holds in store. I'm a little bit scared of, but particularly AI messing with Doctor Who. And I do feel that just this hint, this first chunk of what Ian and the team are aiming to achieve is very, very exciting. And I do wish them every success in the future. And we're going to do everything that we can to highlight this mission, hopefully not to the unknown.
Very good.
That the guys are on. But for now, just well done, Ian, and everybody involved. In this, we're going to be covering this more. Hopefully, we'll be highlighting your plight to get these gaps filled as authentically as possible in as rich a way that keeps alive the spirit of those stories and those storytellers, and that archive material maintains its dignity and its flavour. It's incredibly culturally important, not just to Doctor Who fans, but to British culture generally. I feel.
And this is why I just kind of feel these reconstructions are just so important to get as close as possible to the original, rather than going off on some flight of fantasy and just importing entirely new information and just turning it into something that it's not. That's not an archive project. That's fine if you want to do that. I'm not saying that people shouldn't be doing something that's entirely new with the old material. But for me personally, I want to see them as close as they were meant to be at the time, because that's kind of then as close a historical record as we can get.
Ian confirms here that if you go to his Facebook group, Ian Levine's Doctor Who Forum, and ask for Henry Carlson, apparently he is in possession of the link. It does seem that he can sort that out for anybody who does want to see it, I would assume. So go and find
fantastic.
Ian Levine's Doctor Who Forum over there on Facebook. Okay, this is Type 40 Live. More Daleks. It's time for a quick break. And if you don't already need the smallest room in your TARDIS by the time you've seen these metal meanies in the shopping precincts of Great Britain and doing all manner of other things, you may well do so. We'll see you in a little while, right after the Type 40 Live Doctor Who ad break.
Wear this. It's far too revealing.
Yes. Cut it off. Cut it all off.
I tell you what, love. Let's ask your mother around this weekend. We haven't seen her in ages.
Have a break. Have a Kit Kat.
Peace and love.
In the history of robots, one breed stands out as the epitome of evil, and they're back to wreak mayhem and havoc.
On my foot!
Yeah, I've got the power. Inflict your revenge this Christmas on the new remote-controlled Dalek. Yeah, they've got the lot, the flashing lights, electronic banter, and the idle threats. And they're all useless when it comes to climbing the stairs. The new remote-controlled Dalek is now available for $69.99 by dialing 0800 975 4591.
Yeah, Type 40 Live, your live stream Doctor Who magazine show. You're back, we're back, and we're still at it here with this special review show. Our gratitude to Ian Levine and the team who've made this new AI-assisted version of The Nightmare Begins a reality. I've just nipped off for a drop or two of the good stuff there, and yeah, cheers, Karen. All's well. I'm here with the panel still. We've got Simon Horton, we've got Sarah Graham, and we've got Charlotte Shields here as we've been mopping one another's brows after the intense experience talking about 22 minutes of classic Doctor Who that's been miraculously brought back to the life, restored, revived, however you want to look at it. We've just watched it.
And we're showing up about it.
I know, could dial that down a bit. But it is euphoric. But talking about it in the way that we have, without consulting the tome of these terrific tales that we call the Doctor Who Diary, Simon, that wouldn't be right. This is Type 40 Live after all. I understand you've squirreled away a few little facts there in the diary.
Yeah, we have got a few little notes about sort of the production of this story. As has already been mentioned, it was Terry Nation that wrote this particular episode. The Daleks Masterplan in total was written by Terry Nation and Dennis Spooner. They sort of switched back.
Before you do that,
don't
you want me to do this?
I didn't realise I was going to get my music and everything.
You couldn't wait, could you, Simon?
I couldn't wait. Well, it's because it's not a Thursday. I just didn't think we were going to get the music and everything.
As you were saying?
As I was. Yeah, so absolutely. As you can see there from the Radio Times listing, yeah, Nightmare Begins was written by Terry Nation and Dennis Spooner. As I say, between Dennis Spooner and Terry Nation, they switched episodes backwards and forwards pretty much. As the 12 episodes, it was just incredible. 3 months, the 3 months of television progressed. And it was directed, as has already been commented, by Douglas Camfield. This was Douglas's third full serial that he directed. He'd already done little bits on An Unearthly Child, and he'd worked on the location. Yeah, just little bits, and he'd worked on the location footage for The Chase. That was directed by Richard Martin. He'd done sort of a little bit of work on that as well. But this was Douglas's first full brush with the Daleks, and boy, did he get an absolute epic with, as I say, 3 months worth of television. By the way, just popping back to Terry Nation for a second, this was his fourth Dalek serial. You mentioned Dan about that by now Terry had written quite a few Dalek episodes, and was he running out of ideas? I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, in that the Daleks Masterplan, and this episode in particular, The Nightmare Begins, we begin to sort of see those Terry Nation tropes of the man-eating plants and the jungle planet, and what I love about the Brett Vine and Kurt Gantry, played by, as I say, by Brian Cant. They're very, very much the characters that we then get to see in the Dalek annuals. There he is. There's Brian Cant from Play Away. That takes me back. Those are happy days for me.
The evolution of a comb over there, isn't it, for Brian? Big Brian.
That's a little bit cruel, but yes, I think you can see for the the distance between those is probably around about 8 years, I would say, between those two photos.
He was a lovely presence, wasn't he, on children's television in the 70s and the 80s. And I remember first seeing that snippet of The Nightmare Begins that did survive, seeing that for the first time and instantly recognising him as sort of my cuddly uncle from off the telly, you know?
I don't even know whether he did much other acting. I have to be honest. Was this his only acting work and then he went into presenting? I don't know. Don't know the answer to that one.
Similar to that geezer, the Jeffrey from Rainbow. I think he was initially an actor and gradually he probably did less and less as time went on.
Yeah, could be. But as I say, it's certainly lovely to see Brian Cant in this episode. As I say, yeah, for people of a certain age, they will remember Brian very, very well. Rob, which I am one.
He was in The Dominators as well. I'd forgotten about that.
Was he?
Yeah. In the little miniskirt that they have to wear.
I bet he loved doing that.
Yeah, he drew the short straw that time, didn't you,
Brian? He certainly did. But yes, as I say, we have got some sort of Terry Nation tropes creeping in by this point. He's beginning to regurgitate certain stuff at this point. But what I was going to say was that was Brian Cant's character and Nicholas Courtney's character. They're very much the space security service that you see in the Dalek annuals, and so. This Terry Nation Doctor Who is of a very particular nature. And actually, The Nightmare Begins is kind of quintessential classic Terry Nation.
But it's so tight, isn't it? It doesn't feel like, I know we've already talked about the episode, but I'm so buzzing with it. It was so tight and atmospheric, and it just felt like you could tell that the series was still really, really alive culturally, and that its star hadn't fallen.
Not in the slightest. As I said earlier, this episode still feels very, very fresh, very on the nose. They still knew what they were doing at this point, even though by this stage, the behind the scenes it had gone through quite a sort of turbulent time with upheavals of different producers and story editors as they were at the time. But you can't tell that. As I say, it's on top of its game, I think, as much as anything here. The one downside with this particular episode, and you see it actually in episode 2, because after watching this early today, I went straight in and watched episode 2, which does exist in the archives. And it's interesting because you can see now in episode 2, you become aware it's actually quite Douglas Camfield's directing style, and this is actually quite slow and steady. It's not like some of his later serials that feel, excuse me, I said I got a cold. Some of his later serials feel much more on the nose with, excuse me, I'm going to have to get some
You're right.
water. He goes much more into action stuff. Douglas Camfield does, but this feels quite sedate. And when you watch episode 2, you realise why in The Nightmare Begins there are some quite sort of pregnant pauses while we're waiting for stuff to happen. Because when you watch episode 2, you realise that they're quite languid shots. Where not a lot happens. Something is happening. Somebody is moving very, very slowly through the shot. But that's why in this particular reconstruction of The Nightmare Begins, you do notice some sort of pregnant pauses. Thank you, YW2324. I'm getting better already.
You know what? I'm going to watch episode 2 before bed tonight, I think. Ian Levine in the live chat says the 3 all-time best Doctor Who stories were all in a row. Mythmakers, Masterplan, and followed up with the Massacre. There's high praise.
And of course, Massacre, absolutely nothing exists to the Massacre. And so that's one thing that I'm very, very unfamiliar with the Massacre, even more so than the Daleks Masterplan. As I say, this Dalek story went on for 3 months. 12 episodes. It's just incredible to even think of it. Rumor has it that supposedly the reason this came about, that it was such a long story, was that the head of drama at the time, Hugh Weldon, had asked for a very long Dalek story because apparently his mother-in-law loved the Daleks, and so to appease his mother-in-law, he had a word with the Doctor Who team and said, just do a really long Dalek story to keep the mother-in-law happy, please. I'm on a promise here.
It is, it's a length to go to, indeed. I don't think the school kids of the time, Charlotte, would have complained. Do you? 3 months of summer.
I know. I think they would have been very, very happy.
You kind of think We need it. Sorry, go on, Sarah.
I was going to say, this is the one that straddles Christmas as well, isn't it? Where there's just that random episode in the police station.
Yeah. Which they did that Christmas episode right there in the middle of it, the Feast of Stephen, which was such a clever title. Again, just a brilliant clever title. And John Wiles, actually, you mentioned earlier on, Dan, about the length of this episode, 22 minutes. It is a short episode, just over 22 minutes. And apparently, John Wiles, the producer at the time, said that the reason this episode is particularly short, and it is sort of about a minute and a half shorter than it might have been otherwise, was because they had difficulty in accurately timing the special effects shots, of which there are a few in this particular story. Interestingly, by this point at the series in the series history, when the show had been kicking around for sort of two and a half years, there was already a feeling of, well, was there sort of a degree of tiredness, of fatigue over the Daleks, and John Wiles and Donald Tosh, the story editor at the time, certainly hoped that this would see the end of the Daleks. That was kind of at one point they were thinking that they'll go out on the bang and this will be the end of the Daleks. But incredibly, this story this particular episode got 9.1 million viewers. So, we've talked about how the show was not on by any means on the wane at this point. So 9.1 million viewers, that was, there's nothing wrong with over 9 million viewers for this. So there was no degree of fatigue with Doctor Who or with the Daleks at this point in the show's history. They were still very much loved, and of course they would go on to appear again in Doctor Who only sort of a year later in The Power of the Daleks. So their time was far from over at this point. So it's just one of those stories that there's just so much intrigue about these stories where they no longer exist for us to watch. This is the thing. It's difficult to sort of really get a handle on.
It's romance. It's the kind of forbidden fruit. It's kind of like the Lost Ark of the Covenant. It's of that level for Doctor Who fans. Any of these episodes is. I really believe so. I mean, now and again, when episodes do come back, I do hear people, the title of the episode is revealed, and some people go, I wish it was something else. I go, what? It never enters my mind. I'm delighted. Literally, whatever it is, I'm absolutely delighted. Ian Levine says, we are all adored it. So we're talking about the greatest epic, Mavic Shen, the greatest ever villain. Mavic Chen, is a great baddie as Richard Brooks right up to the end. He is convinced he will rule the Daleks. That's the thing, isn't it? When you almost end up rooting for the Daleks themselves. That's great storytelling. That's great Doctor Who. Yeah, and Right Said Fred were in it as well. Who'd have thought? Thanks for the diary there, Simon.
You're very welcome.
Condensed edition there, specifically on the Nightmare Begins, that first instalment of the Daleks Masterplan, which has been restored and revived by a team of dedicated, talented people who managed to actually do something constructive with AI, something that doesn't scare the pants off me. And for that alone, I'm pretty grateful, to tell you the truth. Thanks again for the diary there, Simon.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
Fantastic. Bloody hell, I cut him off again.
No, all I was going to say was, let's not forget, it's 59 years ago. It finished, the Daleks Masterplan finished back in January, so a couple of months ago, but 59 years ago. 59 years.
And we're still talking about it.
Still talking about it. 58, actually. 58 it finished. 58 started 59 years ago. Amazing.
try stopping us. Some of us have barely managed 59 minutes. So, yes. Yes, here we are, chums. We're back. Thank you to everybody who's been with us on this journey. But there is one more thing. As always, it would be rude, wouldn't it, not to end on even more pretty pictures. You must be joking. Surely not. Yes, this is our regular eye right up the temporal schism in search of the prettiest of pictures. Those are fabulous traditional or digital fan art pieces that are a feast for the eyes there and stimulate and re-evoke these amazing adventures from the Doctor's past. And earlier on at the top of the show, we talked about the Hartnell Doctor and how inspirational and iconic that figure of the character is, with the swept back white hair and the checkered trousers and that necktie. That the first Doctor, the silhouette of the first Doctor is just as memorable, just as identifiable and unmistakable as I think as Tom's was, really. And so when it comes to this character, you see him in images like this, images we've all seen over and over and over again there in articles, and from all the way from Doctor Who Weekly right up to the present day. We've all seen this, and you think to yourself, if only it could look a little sharper, don't you? A little more remastered. And I wonder what the colours were like. Do you ever think that, Sarah?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
I'm glad you said that.
I'd have ruined it if I hadn't.
Segue.
Because I had too, and so had Clayton Hickman. So he waved his magic wand, which isn't a pretty sight.
I don't think you can say that, Dan. Cut that out. It's not live show. Cut it out.
We'll be fine. Everything will be fine. So yes, this is what Clayton has done here with the first Doctor in this publicity shot from the Daleks Masterplan.
Oh my life. That's incredible.
Oh, look at the stars. They're gorgeous on that screen.
That's just superb.
Yeah,
I really like that.
Yeah, so do I. There are lots and lots of these images, of course, from around that time, and some of them appeared in Radio Times. But this one, this, as I say, this image of the first Doctor, there's nothing doddery about this character in this. I think that goes back to what we were saying at the start of the show, Charlotte.
Well, it's the eyes. I think just if there's one thing about this character you need to do as an actor is your eyes. You need to be able to act with those two things, because that says commander, that says intelligence, that says don't mess with me. Like all those things in one look.
It's funny when I look at that image, and you're right, Charlotte. I look at William Hartnell like that. Suddenly, I can see why Doctor Who was such a huge success. It's just there's something about William Hartnell there. You can see how he consolidated the success of Doctor Who in the public, and that's why we're still talking about it to this day. It's just such a beautiful photo. And I say he just commands attention, doesn't he? There, you're right, Charlotte. It's just brilliant look on his face.
And people love it in the live chat too. Another Hickman masterpiece, says Richard Brooks. Darren says simply fantastic. That is superb, says John Yulden. Sorry, John. Says John Yulden. So superb, it's made him want to go and watch Pyramids of Mars. Well, okay.
Oh, okay, a bit random.
Scratch the itch. Wow, says Gary Akers, the retro doc. I couldn't agree more. A great big wow. But yeah, that is the piercing eyes and those cheekbones there of the first Doctor. You couldn't not take that seriously, could you? But on the flip side of it, obviously, any great characterization of every pop culture icon, it can be interpreted in lots of different ways. And this one from David Raboni, this is his take. This kind of, I think this is a sort of Hanna-Barbera take, isn't it? A little bit Flintstones take on the first Doctor. I thought he was playing some spoons initially, but he's just...
just clutching his lapels.
Clutching is, I think he's propping himself up after a few bevies at Christmas with that red nose, I think.
What I like the most about this is the colours, Charlotte.
Oh yeah, and Starry said it is very Scooby-Doo, sort of Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah.
But it's like even as early as the first Doctor, he understood William, that idea of having a silhouette. And that's what's also translated so much in the Doctor throughout the years. With the capes and the cans and the uprightness. Like, if anybody talks about the First Doctor, you almost naturally make yourself do that pose, don't you?
Yeah, 100%.
I've done it. When
you just clutch the lapels and you're there.
Simon, I don't mind telling you, now and again I have the odd senior moment now, and I reach for my lapels. I do.
Well, it's got to be done. It has to be done. And he was the original and the best, and he did it. He that lapel clutch was. And this is one of the beautiful things about William Hartnell, isn't it? He always said that his acting style was. That's why his hands are used so much, because he was very, very aware of the size of the frame in a close-up, and so you had to use your hands, and that's why his hands are so expressive, and that's why the sort of the clutching of the lapels comes into it, because he was aware of the size of the frame that he was working within, and it wasn't a long shot. Most shots on television are mid-shot or close-up. He understood that. Clever man.
This is such a great comment. I had to leave it up for an extended period. Darren Apken says, William Hartnell, the one and forever First Doctor. I couldn't agree more, except no substitutes.
Don't listen to any of the rubbish. Don't listen to the lies.
People do love, I think people love most incarnations of the Doctor, but there is something very, very special about this first incarnation. I understand that he probably is Ian Levine's favourite. I would say he was Ian McLaughlin's favourite, wasn't he? Ian McLaughlin loved him, and Ian Levine, I know, it is his favourite Doctor, and Dalek's Masterplan is his favourite story. He's always been very, very vocal about that it is his favourite story. So, enough. You could say that this is somewhat undignified. I think it depends on who you are and how you look at the Whoniverse. So let's bring some balance, shall we? Yes, so well done, David Raboni. I do like that one, but I also like this one from Rob Rice. This fabulous.
That's beautiful.
That's fabulous. Is that? I'm assuming that is digital, but it almost looks painted, doesn't it? But it does.
It does look painted. Is it?
It is digital. It's on Procreate, as I understand.
It's gorgeous, though. I've always loved. I mean, obviously that's from an unearthly child, but so that's right at the very beginning. But it's just beautiful. And again, I just look at that. I can see why Doctor Who became a success when you look at that face. Beautiful, right?
Yeah, the choice. It's the color palette as well. That's what appeals to me the most. The sort of the warmth coming out of it. And people say about the First Doctor, obviously they make out that he was this really, really cold figure. That's not the way I look at him at all. I do think of him as a magical character, and there was an unknowing edge to him in some respects, but there's still a warmth there. Still a warmth.
I think with the First Doctor, you've got to remember he spent so long just him and Susan, and that made him have to be almost closed off. And as soon as he got around people again, I think you do see that warmth and you see that protectiveness that he had.
I don't know about you, Charlotte, but I never had any problem warming to the First Doctor, because after watching what Eccleston did with the Ninth Doctor and how, meeting Rose and how she rekindled his, love of humanity and got him back into adventures and opening up. That's how it translated to me going back and watching Hartnell, seeing him. He's almost combative with Ian and Barbara at first, and then he gradually thaws, and then by the time you get to Vicky, he is just like this twinkly granddad, and then when Stephen turns up, he's like, oh yeah, you can stay on board, which would have never happened, the previous season, so yeah, it's just wonderful. There's no way he's that gruff.
I can remember when I first started watching Classic, I warmed to him, because for me it wasn't, I could see beneath all that, like I said, all the sort of sharpness he could have at times and the grumpiness, he actually was incredibly caring.
Yes.
And I think you saw that from the get-go with how much he almost wanted to protect Susan from the others finding her. And everything was almost done in aid of, no, I have to protect her. I got that vibe very quickly from him.
And I've always thought it's an interesting character, because it's just a complex character. He's very much a multifaceted character, and so yeah, I agree with you. I love those little prickly moments. It doesn't detract from the character or make it a difficult character to like. As I say, it just adds it to me because it just makes it's complex characterization, and that's interesting. That's what we need. So many roles these days are very, very one-dimensional. They're very cardboard cutouts.
It seems clear to me, looking at this piece of fan art, that Rod agrees with us, and
he understands that, doesn't he? Rod,
an enormous fondness and love for this character, and it's capturing the eyes, capturing the mood, and conveying this icon to us that all these decades later, 6 decades now since the first Doctor first stepped out of the TARDIS and onto the television screen. Fabulous, fabulous stuff. We've got a couple of quotes, in fact, from Ian Levine. I think he's very urgent for us to get these quotes out. So what's Ian posted? What's he got here? We have. Okay, what does he say? He says, so this is a direct quote here, and I think this is from the first Doctor. He says, "Coronas of the sun. And you had the audacity to accuse me, Mavic Chen, of incompetence. Really? A Dalek pursuit ship stolen? It's not an emergency, no, more like a catastrophe."
These apparently are Ian's favourite quotes of all time. So quite right too, because Ian was there at the time. And this is the whole point. He knows how this episode played out. And he made notes on it, and that's why he loves it so much.
Yes, we've had a blast here, reliving this classic Doctor Who story that's been restored by Ian and his team. We've been looking at the first Doctor as well. Fabulous images like this of that amazing face, the magic of William Hartnell. If you're a fan artist, whether it's a traditional or a digital artist, and you've got some work you'd like to get up on our view screen, I would hope by now, how to get it into our TARDIS. Yes, we're very, very open to any kind of art. It could be craft, it can be cosplay. If it's arty, if you've spent a lot of time and poured your affection into it, we'd like to see it and get it up here on the view screen. Get it to us. You can find us in the comments section there, or on our social media. That's Instagram and X at Type40 Doctor Who. And you can send us directions to your website, your DeviantArt page, or your X account, anywhere like that. Wherever your art is, just lead us there, and we'll get it up on the screen for everybody to see. You can also join the Type 40 Facebook group. Of course you can. And it's even quicker. You can pop them up on the wall and everybody can see if you're brave enough. Everybody's a critic, aren't they, Paul? If the wind changes, it'll stick like that. That's what my mother used to say. So yeah, get over there into the Type 40 Facebook group, or just reach out to us through the social medias. Yeah, times change. I love this image. I thought we'd end on this image inside the spaceship, not with the Doctor, Stephen, and Sarah Kingdom. We're with Jean Marsh, Peter Purvis, and William Hartnell. They're going through, and they're rehearsing something there. Simon, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can see wonderfully William Hartnell there in his civvies, not in his Doctor outfit. So yeah, these will be camera rehearsals from the afternoon prior to shooting. And there's the floor manager on the front there with the script, checking off the cues. I don't think I've ever seen that photo before. That's wonderful. I'm assuming that's a colorized photo, Dan.
Apparently not.
Is that a genuine colour? Wow.
This is a genuine colour photograph from all the way back in 1965. Unless somebody wants to correct me, I believe it is.
God, that's just gorgeous. That's fantastic. Wonderful to see that.
It's such a lovely snapshot. It's just so strange seeing Hartnell in a jumper.
Yeah. Yes, hasn't got the wig on either, look.
No, yeah, it's completely different. What a lovely moment that, we've got preserved.
They were there making magic, and we'll be making more magic here. If you join us again this coming Thursday for an explosive edition of our regular Type 40 live show, same time and space, more hot takes, cold shoulders, pet peeves, bouquets, or pot shots, maybe on the next Type 40 live. If you want to find out more about what Ian's doing there with his reconstructions, you can find him over there in the Ian Levine, I've got to get this right, Ian Levine's Doctor Who forum there over on Facebook. So that's where you can get over there and you can get that link. There's lots of information up on the wall, lots of reviews, lots of enthusiasm, and lots of promise too. For more. Yes, we're looking at you, Sunshine. Shooty Gat was been out and about. Enough of that. Another time. Simon, you're going to miss out on that. You're not going to be here on Thursday, sadly, aren't you?
No, I'm not going to be here on Thursday, but all being well, I'll be back next week. Hopefully without a cold.
Yes, you see, this is it. I think it's just because he knows that we're coming back to the to 2024. But pull the other one, Simon. Pull the other one. Yes, Charlotte, thanks for your company. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm excited for the future. I think you are too. I mean, who knows where this will go? But it's been, I think, when you see things achieved like this, in all seriousness, and then you look at technology and you're aware of how technology is capable of being abused and making us go, oh God, then to have something positive, to have something that for 22 minutes gave us something back, it's a great thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's lovely when you can appreciate something with love. And on that lovely note, I need to go. So good night, everybody. See you on Thursday.
Good night, Charlotte.
Good night. See you Thursday, love.
Thank you to Sarah as always. I think you're free on Thursday. You're with us on Thursday?
Yeah, sadly I haven't got a cold that I can get out of.
Just don't get too close to my screen. That's all I'm saying.
Brilliant stuff. And thank you everybody who's dropped us so many comments too. I think we've got round to the bulk of them. Certainly so much enthusiasm for this. Thank you all the regulars, all the new people that have found us on this edition of Type 40 Live as well. All that fabulous information, the supporting information and general support from Ian Levine himself. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for being here this evening, Ian. Thanks for watching along and commenting.
Everybody, thank you for joining us this Monday evening.
Been a good one.
It's been absolutely fabulous, but that's it for this one. We'll see you back in it here in a few days' time, back to the present. But we always have the time if you have the space here at Type 40 Live. Drop us a comment and we'll see you there. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.